Hello and welcome to a special edition of Battle Cry, coming to you from the Indian Air Force Base, Ambala, on the induction of the Rafale omni-role fighter jets into the Indian Air Force. Ambala is the oldest base of the Indian Air Force. The first squadron came in 1919 and the latest squadron comes in 2020, 101 years later, and that is our top focus story on Battle Cry.
Inducted, locked and loaded.
Rafale का induction golden arrows को एक नई चमक देगा.
Ritual welcome to the Rafale.
Om Sushantri Sushantri.
अल्लाह इसको इतना ताकतवर बना दे.
रफेल जहाज की रहमत करके सच्चे बादशाह.
We thank thee and praise the Lord for the way thou art blessing our country.
Rafale squadron comes to life. Armed, ready and fully capable. India's Rafale Raj begins.
It is truly a historic occasion here at the Ambala Air Base. After Su-30 MKIs, these Rafales are the first aircraft to be inducted into the Indian Air Force. There was a grand ceremony at Ambala where Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh, the French Minister for Armed Forces, Florence, the Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin, the Chief of Air Staff Air Chief Marshal Bhadauria were all present for the historic, momentous ceremony. For the Indian Air Force, the biggest news is that these aircraft are now locked and loaded and good to go.
The ceremonial swagat of India's first Rafale fighters. Cloudy skies over Ambala, briefly lit up by the roars of India's newest and most capable fighter jets. The Rafales ceremonially inducted Thursday into the Golden Arrows squadron. But as the jets ripped up the northern skies, from the hallowed ground of Ambala, a powerful message was sent out to China.
The squadron has been really busy and in an overdrive to operationalize. Within this time, they have already flown and familiarized with our operational environment and have undergone intense integrated training with our other combat fleets, including firing of advanced weapons. And I expect the Golden Arrows to intimidate and dominate whenever and wherever employed.
Good to go, says the Air Chief. A major claim, and he isn't exaggerating. Since their arrival, the Indian Rafales have been stretching their wings, testing their firepower at India's weapons ranges, and even flying operational missions not far from the standoff zone in Ladakh. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, who presided over the ceremony on Thursday, also had a message for China.
अपनी multirole capabilities के साथ या दुश्मनों के खिलाफ अचूक कार्रवाई करने में भी पूरी तरह से सक्षम है. हमारी सीमाओं पर जिस तरह का माहौल हाल के दिनों में बना है, या मैं सीधा कहूं कि बनाया गया है, उनके लिहाज से यह इंडक्शन बहुत ही अहम है.
French Defence Minister Florence, who was also present, used the occasion to reaffirm France's commitment to India, right after a symbolic display of India's syncretic multi-faith culture with a Sarvadharm ritual to welcome the Rafales into their new squadron.
What makes these Rafales an absolute game changer? The platform and the weapons on board. The beyond visual range air-to-air missile Meteor that can take down an enemy aircraft more than 100 kilometers away. the Scalp air-to-ground cruise missile that can take down an enemy target more than 300 kilometers away, the Hammer missile, the Mika missile, the electronic warfare suite, all of this on board this aircraft. This, of course, is a twin-seater version. Make this aircraft an absolute game changer in this region. No other air force in the region has an aircraft so potent, and that's why this is not just an air dominance fighter, an air superiority fighter. It's actually an omni-role, omnipresent fighter, a game changer for the Indian Air Force.
The new jets were seen flying with Indian Air Force Jaguars, Su-30s, with an Indian Tejas also joining the spectacular proceedings. In case you're wondering, the 17th Squadron or Golden Arrows doesn't have a moment of pause. The race to keep the Rafales flying and get to full battle readiness at the earliest is on. For those watching and keeping tabs, message delivered.
Remember, in 1962, air power wasn't used in a combat role. 2020, air power is already on display. And this is one of the major differences between 1962 and 2020, the Rafale and the use of air power. With cameraman Kripal Singh at the Ambala Air Base, Gaurav Sawant for India Today. For the Rafale fighter jets, the moment the aircraft landed, there wasn't a moment to lose. There is a tense standoff at the line of actual control, and the aircraft started operationalizing. What does that mean? They started operating and integrating with other fighter jets and with the Airborne Early Warning Command and Control Platform, the AWACS. These aircraft have been flying operational sorties and they are ready for war. They've already discharged their weapons at the field firing ranges, their precision-guided munition, and that indicates that the pilot, the aircraft, the vital environment are all ready and in sync.
India's public has one question above all. Will the Rafales play a role in Ladakh? Like all things military, it's a complex answer. So stay with us as we take you through it step by step. Question 1. Will the Rafales be deployed in Ladakh? First things first, the Rafales will be based at Haryana's Ambala, which as you can see is 430 kilometers from Ladakh, which may seem like a lot, but it's a very short distance in supersonic fast fighter jet terms and can be covered very quickly. More importantly, the Rafale's range and its combat radius is a staggering 1700 kilometers, which means the aircraft and its weapons are a direct threat to all zones covered by that circle, which very much includes eastern Ladakh, Chinese-controlled Aksai Chin, Tibet, Pakistan and POK. Question number 2. Can Rafales operate from Ladakh? The answer to that question is a big yes. In fact, one of the India-specific enhancements on the Rafale is a modification of the fighter's twin jet engines, allowing them to operate at extreme cold temperatures of the high-altitude air bases like Leh. Question number 3. Don't Indian Air Force pilots need time to train? The Indian Air Force has clearly stated that its pilots are fully operational on the Rafale and its advanced weapon systems. And while the jets can always be deployed where and when necessary, specific mission familiarization has actually already begun. Since June, Indian pilot trainees in France have specifically been flying simulated combat profiles mirroring missions over Ladakh, with true depictions of terrain and deployments. The Rafale combat simulators and training equipment allow pilots to load scenarios of choice and fly missions in a highly realistic artificial intelligence setting. While this can only be the next best thing to actual flights, it's an indication of a move to get combat ready quickly. Question 4. How will China react to the Indian Rafales? Well, Well, after the Rafales arrive, the jets will already have a psychological effect across the border. Every time the adversary spots an aircraft on the Indian side, they will assume it's the Rafale with all its advanced long-range weaponry, and that itself can have an effect on any potential battle. The belief that India will always put its best foot forward in a combat scenario could have a deterrent effect. Question 5. Is the Rafale better than Chinese jets? While the Chinese Air Force has capable aircraft and in large numbers, the Rafale currently outclasses them in all parameters, including combat radius, range, weaponry, and very importantly, in terms of electronic warfare. China's most advanced jet, the 5th generation J-20 stealth fighter, should theoretically be a superior aircraft. But without combat experience like the Rafale, and China likely unwilling to expose its jet to Indian sensors, the advantage stands eroded for now. But the Chinese jet is still a reminder that India still doesn't have a true stealth fighter aircraft yet. Bureau Report, India Today.
There is tremendous excitement in the Indian Air Force circles. Other fighter pilots are coming and talking to Rafale pilots to find out what's it like flying this magnificent beast in the skies. Now, India Today's consultant editor, Shiv Arur, has flown a Rafale jet. Of course, that was before these aircraft were inducted in the Indian Air Force. And here is Shiv explaining why this is such a magnificent flying machine.
Roaring, ready, and all set for the Indian Air Force. And as a whole generation of Indian aviators gets set to operate one of the most advanced combat jets in production today, India Today takes you where nobody else has managed to. Directly into the Rafale's cockpit and into the air. That's right, we aren't kidding, we're talking literally. Long before the current crop of Indian pilots who'll get to fly the Rafale, India Today's Shiv Arur, that's me, became the first Indian civilian to do a sortie in the French combat jet. In 2011, not long before the Rafale was officially selected as India's next fighter following a grueling selection process, I was invited to strap in and experience the 4th generation French jet for myself. For the flight, I needed to get the full lowdown on the advanced jet. Flying me on this warm summer morning at the Yelahanka Air Base in Bengaluru was Sebastian Dupont de Dineshin, an experienced Dassault test pilot with hundreds of hours on the Rafale jet. For this flight, I got to don a French Navy flight suit and boots, all crucial elements to the flying experience. And of course the all-important G-suit, indispensable for combat flying that involves sharp maneuvers. The Rafale is a beast of a jet, powered by twin jet engines that make it one of the most agile aircraft in the air. I got a full cockpit briefing on the aircraft, including how to operate major systems, controls, and of course the emergency ejection system in case of any catastrophe in the air. Engines on, and the growl of the Rafale on the tarmac drowns out pretty much all else. Inside the cockpit, however, with helmet on, I can hear barely a rumble. And I remain in direct communication throughout with pilot Sebastian. full afterburners on, the Rafale roars off the tarmac and rockets into the sky at a steep angle, followed by a sharp turn to the right, demonstrating the aircraft's incredible agility. Strapped into the Rafale, we exited Bengaluru airspace to less densely populated parts of the state for a full 15-minute flight, where I was given control of the jet at 16,000 feet for a full 15 minutes, allowing me to execute all manner of maneuvers, including full loops, barrel rolls, and steep dives, followed by high-G level-out stunts. After a full demonstration of the Rafale sensor and combat systems, it was time to return to base.
How does the Rafale compare to the J-20 stealth fighter of the Chinese Air Force? The Chinese claim the J-20 is a stealth fighter, it's a generation ahead. But air warriors we've interacted with very clearly say not just the weapons and the systems, but the electronic warfare suite on the Rafales far superior to the J-20. India Today's Shiv Arur now explains why the Rafales are a game changer.
People want to know how the Rafale that's just been inducted into the Indian Air Force actually compares with the J-20, which happens to be China's most advanced fighter. Well, the Rafale, for starters, has combat experience. It has been deployed over Libya, Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan as well, whereas the J-20 has no combat experience whatsoever. Now remember that the Rafale is a 4+ generation fighter aircraft. The J-20 by China is supposedly a 5th generation fighter. They say it is, it's supposed to be 5th generation, but there are some doubts on that front as well. Moving on to stealth characteristics, the Rafale is stealth by technology. There are technologies in it that make it low observable. The J-20 is stealth by design. It is stealth from the design phase itself. Now, the Rafale has advanced electronic warfare equipment on board, whereas the J-20 has equipment, but it is completely untested. So nobody knows precisely how effective this electronic warfare technology on the J-20 is. The Rafale has a max speed of about 1.8 Mach. That's 1.8 times the speed of sound. Comparable speed on the J-20 at about 2 Mach. Now, as far as range and combat radius and range is concerned, the J-20 has, the Rafale has about 1,850 kilometers. Again, very, very comparable combat range on the J-20 at about 2,000 kilometers. These numbers can go exponentially up as a result of mid-air refueling. Combat-proven weapons on the Rafale. Very, very important point of comparison, like the scalp and the hammer have all been used in combat theaters, whereas none of the weapons on the J-20 have actually been tested, and certainly not in any kind of combat theater. And to show you now the weapons that come as part of the standard package on the Indian Air Force Rafale. And this is a pretty advanced weapons package which has already been tested by the Indian Air Force in the last few weeks. There is the medium-range air-to-air missiles, the Mika, radio frequency and infrared. These are at the lower end of air-to-air combat, but they've also got the Meteor, which is by far the longest range air-to-air missile currently in service, and the Indian Air Force has it on its Rafales. The Scalp is a long-range, stealthy, low-altitude, terrain-hugging cruise missile with ranges in excess of 300 kilometers, highly effective and combat-proven. Then you've got laser-guided bombs of all kinds that can be used by the Rafales and have in fact been tested in the last few weeks at India's weapons ranges. The Hammer is another precision-guided weapon that's part of the package that is going to be opted for. And finally, at the lowest round, there is the Nexter M791 cannon, which is rarely used in air power battles these days, but nevertheless is part of the weaponry on board this aircraft. And remember, it's never just the weapons that make up the Rafale. It's also the sensors and the electronics which are as important, if not more important, than just the offensive elements on this aircraft. So take a look at what makes the brain of the Rafale. It starts with the RBE-2 radar. It's an active electronically scanned array radar which is capable of detecting up to 200 kilometers away multiple targets and doing a whole lot of work. This is a radar that can generate 3D maps of uncharted terrain and is actually one of the most advanced combat radars in service at this time, and it's on the Rafale that the Indian Air Force has. It has the capability of also guiding multiple weapons. The front sector optronics, which are located near the nose of this particular aircraft, have the ability to detect groundwater as well as airborne targets. Very importantly, this is immune to jamming, which is hugely important in an environment where electronic warfare is at play, and therefore it's extremely important. The Spectra is a self-protection suite on the Rafale, because remember, the aircraft needs to be able to protect itself from all manner and the entire spectrum of possible offensive elements from the enemy, protection against electronic warfare, against getting locked on, and finally there is the targeting pods like the Talios, which will allow guidance of laser-guided weapon systems. Of course, the Rafale is also getting the Lightning pod from Israel. So these are the brain of the Rafale.
These aircraft are now locked and loaded and ready to be deployed. From this Ambala Air Base, it's equal distance to the line of control and to the line of actual control. And these pilots are taking to the skies to touch the sky with glory. That is all we have time for on this special edition of Battle Cry. Many thanks for watching.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.